and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. I hope you're having yourselves a fantastic morning this morning and happy coming off of the weekend to each and every single one of you. I hope you're enjoying your day today. Hopefully you had a nice weekend, a relaxing weekend. The weather was nice, and I know it's cooler out today, but I'm a glass half full kind of person, and the sky, I'm looking outside here from the studio, and the sky is a beautiful blue today, and it's just the grass is green, the sky is blue. It's a good day. It's a good day. And, I'm so happy that I got to take Lily for a walk. We got to do that. That's something that many of you that follow the show, you know how important it is for me. Healthy body, healthy mind, healthy body. And so we got to do that, which I thought was incredible and had a lot of fun with that. So I hope that you did some nice things this weekend. Hopefully you spent your time wisely. And I'm happy to have you here today in another edition of The Morning After the Madness. And The Morning After the Madness is my moniker, my name for covering March Madness here inside of the NCAA tournament time. So The Morning After the Madness is going to be the name of multiple episodes that we do here in coverage of the NCAA tournament. We started it before the tournament even began, and we've continued it on here. And now coming out of the first four, the round of 64 and the round of 32, into today's conversation of the teams that advanced to the Sweet 16. I believe there's 353 Division I men's basketball programs, and now we're down to the final 16. So we'll be discussing those in this edition of Wake Up Calls, The Morning After the Madness, from inside the Cafe Kubal studios with Dave Pasiak and Mike Kitts. Now, Dave Pasiak is a longtime head coach of men's basketball. He is also a longtime analyst of the game itself, and he joins us from the NVU-Lyndon Hornets men's basketball D3 program today at 9:15 a.m. Eastern Time. He'll be followed in hour number 2 by our NCAA resident official, who is commonly on the show throughout the year, and that is longtime NCAA official who's done Final Fours and national championships, been all around the country, as well as now being a coordinator of men's basketball officiating for multiple conferences, that being Mr. Mike Kitts. And Mike Kitts will join us at 10:15 a.m. Eastern time, 10:15 a.m. Eastern time this morning in hour number 2 to give his thoughts on how the tournament's been going as far as calls and no calls and different things that he has been seeing develop as the tournament has gone on, or either develop and evolve or devolve. So we'll be discussing how he's been taken in the tournament as well. So we get to see from a longtime basketball head coach and analyst, and then we get to see from a longtime official and current coordinator of men's basketball officiating how these first couple rounds of the tournament have gone, including with the first 4, which Mike was on site for in Dayton, Ohio. So we'll have some fun with these conversations this morning as we bring you yet another piece of The Morning After the Madness here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. As I said before, we're inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, which means that you should fill up your cup right today by heading out to Cafe Kubal to any one of their locations. Whether it be that you want some coffee, some tea, some chai, whatever you want to put in that cup that they offer to you, it's made here in our community, in-house, and I want to thank Matt Goddard for his belief in himself. Starting his company, starting to make coffee in his parents' basement years ago, which turned into a multi-location opportunity to reach out to our community. And everything that they have done, from their travel Cafe Kubal to being able to sell Cafe Kubal at other restaurants and establishments, to everything that they have done with all of their locations, to their consistent expansion. They're always coming up with something new and bringing something new in or adding a different piece. And so for everything that they do, I want to thank Matt Goddard and his team for being an incredible piece of our central and upstate New York community, and reaching out beyond, going to cafekubal.com so that you can go out there and order yourself some Cafe Kubal and send it to a loved one, or keep it yourself, or have, somebody go on there and get something anywhere. I mean, you can order from anywhere. Papa Joe and Mary, they could go on there, cafecubal.com, have it shipped to them, choose something that they want to try out or something that they've loved from before. So make sure you head off to Cafe Cubal today. It's imperative that you do so, and we continue to support local as always here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. So, Cafe Cubal with locations on 3501 James Street in Syracuse, 401 South Salina Street in Syracuse, as well as inside of Galisanos Children's Hospital in downtown Syracuse on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners in North Syracuse in their drive-thru location, and on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York. You will also see them in their return to 324 West Water Street in the Creek Walk Commons in downtown Syracuse. So excited for that location to reopen here. So excited for so many things with Cafe Cubal. Filling my cup up right and making sure that I have my chai ready to go. I want to thank them for all that they do, and I want to thank you for being here today. It's going to be an amazing show with amazing people. Dave Pasiak, Mike Kitts, two non-strangers to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and two that I appreciate so very much, and I'm very, very much looking forward to having them on the show. By the way, I want to give some statistics here that I was writing during the games yesterday as we got to the Sweet 16. Now, letting you know kind of what happened here. The SEC was given 6 bids. They had one automatic bid with Tennessee winning the conference tournament, and the SEC got 5 other teams in. And not only did the SEC have 5 at-large bids to this year's NCAA tournament, but they were all seeded high, including 3 of those 5 getting a 2 or a 3 seed, setting them up for success at the bottom of the bracket to come up and have an opportunity at taking a shot at the Sweet 16 or farther. What happened? Number 2, Auburn, gone. Number 2, Kentucky, gone. Number 3, Tennessee, gone. Number 6, Alabama, gone. Number 6, LSU, gone. The only team that exists still is at-large bid number 4 seeded Arkansas, who has advanced to the Sweet 16. And I'm not here to knock the SEC. I'm here to say to the NCAA selection committee that when you keep teams out like SMU, or you keep a team out that actually made it to the SEC championship like Texas A&M, I look to this and I say to myself, okay, you were high on the SEC. You believe the SEC was going to go far. You put all these SEC teams in, and one of them still exists. And Auburn, who is ranked number 1 in the nation this year, not a mucho. Out in the round of 32. Kentucky, who's consistently given respect, a number 2 seed, didn't make it past 15 seeded St. Peter's this year. Now, the Big Ten was given 9 opportunities. 9. The Big Ten, you'd think, oh, Dan, that's 9 out of 10. No, the Big Ten has 14 schools. I know it's confusing. But when these, in realignment, these conferences didn't change their names like the Pac-12 did from the Pac-10 to the Pac-12. The NCAA Selection Committee gave the Big Ten 8 at-large bids, including their returning champion, Iowa. How'd it turn out? How things are versus how they're going, right? That's what people put up on social media. How things were, the Big Ten gets 8 at-large bids plus their automatic bid. How are things going with those 9 schools? Rutgers lost their play-in game. Michigan State lost in the round of 32. Indiana lost in the round of 64 after their play-in win. Illinois lost in the round of 32. Ohio State lost in the round of 32. Wisconsin lost in the round of 32. And their conference tournament champion, Iowa, lost in the round of 64. Michigan State, have it, down year. 5 of those schools got in to the NCAA tournament. 4 of them at large, and your tournament champion, Virginia Tech. The irony, everybody did well, except for Virginia Tech, who was out in the round of 64 to Texas. Notre Dame won 2 games, their play-in game and in the round of 64, before pushing Texas Tech to the brink and being in a 2-possession game that ended up in the Red Raiders' favor, but Notre Dame gave it all they had and had an opportunity to go to the Sweet 16. The other 3 teams of those 5 are in the Sweet 16, with the ACC accounting for almost a quarter of the nation's final 16 teams in the tournament. North Carolina, who knocked off number 1 Baylor and reigning national champion, Duke, who knocked off Michigan State, and Miami, who knocked off the mighty 2-seeded Auburn. So the ACC, it was said they weren't that good. The SEC was so good, and the Big Ten was the best, according to how things shook out. The reality of it all, that is why you play the game. We'll take a step aside for a fast break here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life. We'll be back right after this fast break with our first guest of the broadcast, the first guest of the week, Dave Pasiak, joining us, longtime basketball head coach and analyst, who's currently the head coach of the NVU-Lyndon Hornets men's basketball Division III team out in Vermont. Looking forward to speaking with Dave Pasiak inside of the Cafe Kubal studios right after this fast break.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Cafe Kubal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafekubal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Kubal needs. Cafe Kubal, coffee for the soul.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. We're inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, hanging out with you every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, where sports meets that thing called life, and always happy to be here with you on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. So we appreciate you being here on Facebook, as well as on YouTube and MixLR, all /WakeUpCallDT, and of course on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT, as well as on the homepage of WakeUpCallDT.com. So however you're connecting with us, thank you so much for being a part of the show. And we are here at that point in the broadcast to welcome our first guest inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, and that is Mr. Dave Pasiak. Dave Pasiak, a longtime basketball head coach and analyst who we have here on the show really every single year since I came back to my hometown of Syracuse, New York, back in like 2011. So we have been on the air together for 11 years now, and Dave is back here with us as the NVU-Lyndon Hornets men's basketball head coach, and like I said, a longtime head coach in general, as well as a basketball mind and analyst. We have a lot of things to get into today, so let's bring him into the broadcast. Dave, how you doing today?
Hey, doing great, Dan. It's been a minute. How's things going for you?
It's been good, and it has been way too long for me to have my Dave Pasiak fix. So it's definitely been a very long time. And I was sitting here and kind of running through everything, and obviously being in conference tournament time, having the opportunity to get back to the conference tournaments and be on site on location, and got to go out to the Garden for the first time in almost a decade and cover the Big East. Got to go to the Barclays in Brooklyn for the ACC. Got to cover the American Athletic from afar and speak with Calvin Sampson and Penny Hardaway and a bunch of different coaches and whatnot from inside the American Athletic. So, it's been a busy time. The NBA's rocking. NCAA's rocking. Things feel more normal. And I was sitting here going, okay, so Dave and I haven't been on in a minute, like you said. So I was like, we got to get on for the NCAA tournament, then switch gears to the NBA playoffs, because normally, you're my resident NBA playoff analyst as well. So trust Dave that though it's been longer than we both wanted it to be, I'm going to definitely be calling you a lot in these next few weeks.
I look forward to it as always. Enjoy the conversation and the banter and the games, especially the games, right?
Yeah, and you and I were talking off the air, and we were coming back onto the broadcast, so I didn't mean to cut you off, and I wanted you to make your points here. And so with that being said, we're now a little ways away from what happened to Buddy Boeheim inside of the ACC tournament. Was he wrong? Yes. Do you know this as, playing the game and coaching the game? You fully know this as well as I know this, or anybody else around, sports in general, is that officials don't see the initial contact, they see the retaliation. And so, Buddy retaliated to what was in Jim Boeheim said. Listen, he bumped him twice, so he reacted. So we saw the retaliation. Yes, it was wrong. No, it wasn't, a typical basketball move. Is it something that's happened all the time in basketball? Yes. Before replay? Absolutely. Before social media? 1,000,000%. Does it happen still today? Of course it does. But Buddy got caught doing something that was wrong. So, first and foremost, was Buddy wrong? Yes. Secondly, there's the official conversation, and I know you want to talk about, officiating college basketball this year. I'd love to get your thoughts on the Buddy Boeheim incident, and now that we've had a couple weeks to kind of think about it, just where you stand on how everything was handled.
Yeah, I think that, and again, I'm not privy to the process within the ACC or anything, but my gut feeling is that had the play been called in the moment, and whether officials go to replay or what have you, to really kind of verify what happened, I think had Buddy been assessed an F2 flagrant 2 foul and been ejected in the moment, I'm guessing that the ACC probably would not have added on to that with the additional game suspension. So I think my gut feeling, and again, I don't have any inside info or privy to any information to verify this, but my gut feeling is that had it been addressed, had he been ejected in the moment, probably he wouldn't have. They probably wouldn't have added the suspension. But I don't know that for fact.
Well, yeah, and I think the thing is, it's difficult to be in a situation, and I haven't seen this, where, and I don't know if you've experienced this, Dave, because I know you always keep, your eye all over, college basketball, D1, 2, 3, JUCO, and whatnot. I know you're always looking, at the pro game as well. So, have you seen a no call that wasn't reviewed that became a flagrant? When they sent us the email, they called it a flagrant act, but the actual act was never called in the game. Have you ever seen something like that where, a group of officials or, a conference and whatnot, that something wasn't handled in a game, So then they go out of the game and suspend somebody. I mean, I've covered sports my whole life. I've been a professional broadcaster for over 18 years, and I don't remember a time where there was a no call, no review that became a suspension.
I actually think you do see those kinds of things happen somewhat frequently in professional sports, where you'll see, the league will go and review the film after the fact, and they'll, impose a suspension or a fine or something for something that happened in the game, sometimes where it's addressed by the officials or sometimes where it's completely missed by the officials. You tend to see it a little less in college sports just because I don't think conferences or the NCAA really want to get in the business of that versus professional sports where they're reviewing game film all the time. And, so I think you do tend to see it more in professional sports. There was a crazy thing in college hockey over the weekend, which was kind of a little bit similar to the Buddy thing, not really involving a suspension, but one of the Division I hockey conferences, they had an overtime goal in their championship game. Goal was allowed, celebrated. They did a post game. Everybody had left the ice, left the arena, and like over an hour after the fact, the conference came back and said, "Hey, that goal shouldn't have counted. It went under the goal and not inside the two posts." They made the teams come back on the ice and restart the game in overtime. So, you do see crazy stuff like that involving replay and involving video review. It just tends to not happen as frequently in college sports as it does in professional sports. When you do see it in college sports, it usually has to do with things. I mean, you look at it like the Juwan Howard thing where they went back and reviewed the film and ended up suspending him, and because they looked at this, they took a swipe at the the assistant from Wisconsin and all that. So I think it does happen. It's just not. One is, it probably doesn't garner the same amount of media attention during the regular season, and as it does in professional sports. It does happen after the fact for sure.
Well, and you and I were talking off the air, and this was kind of a prelude to the officiating of the NCAA tournament. Now, Mike Kitts is one of the longtime NCAA officials. He'll be on in hour number 2, and Mike, he's done Final Fours, he's done national championships. He consistently goes around the country, and one of his jobs now is to review officials, to look at the officials in the tournament and to go to different places and say how they're performing and what's going on. He had made a statement that because that officiating crew had missed that call and retroactively they, suspend Buddy, that he, I said to him, would you have done something if you were the coordinator of men's basketball officiating for the conference, for the ACC? Would you have done something? And he said, yeah, I probably would have suspended the officials. Now, later on in the ACC tournament, those officials are still out officiating. So, that to me was wrong in and of itself. With you being a longtime coach, as we get into the NCAA tournament in a second here and talk about the officiating currently, would you have gone and said, okay, Buddy's suspended, but you guys are out of the tournament for not reviewing this? Because the guy gets, Wyatt Wilkes gets hit. He's on the ground for minutes. It would have been easy to go and review the tape in the moment and suspend him. I mean, we saw in the tournament within the last couple of days, they went back and reviewed the tape, called it a flagrant 2, kicked the guy out of the game. So, would you have liked to see the ACC, reprimand the officials as well, or how do you look at that?
Yeah, I think that on the officiating side, especially regular season and at the conference level, I think when that stuff happens, you don't hear about it. I know, like at our level, at Division III level, like if there's an egregious thing with an official, they'll take an assignment or 2 away from him. And I think the same thing happens at the major college Division I level, where if there's an issue with an official or a crew, once in a while it'll be it'll get publicized. I know there was a thing several years ago in Madison Square Garden where a crew didn't handle something properly in the Big East game, and they went public and said these guys are not going to get a postseason game. So once in a while you'll see an announcement like that. But I think the official quietly, and it may be a situation where they take an assignment or two away, or there's some kind of internal consequences, from their assigner or within their conference. So I don't know, if there was anything along those lines with that particular crew, or if they lost an assignment or a game check or anything like that. I don't know that happened. So, those things I kind of leave to the conference and the respective assignments to handle those things. I think we tend not to see that as much as when it involves a player or a coach.
No, and I think you're completely right. And I believe, in a world where you're not allowed to talk about officials, right? And can you speak to that as a head coach, that, especially that, I saw growing up at the D1 level and, professionally and whatnot, you were not allowed to speak about the officials. If you talked about the officials, if you badmouthed them, and you didn't have to swear about them, you didn't have to call them names. If you went to the microphone in a post-game press conference and you're Jim Boeheim or Coach K or John Calipari or Roy Williams or, whomever, and you went out there and you said, hey, the official missed the call under the basket in the final minute of the game and it cost us the game, then you could turn around and get fined $15,000, $3,000, $5,000. What's your take on that side of it? That, coaches historically were told you cannot question an official after the game, you can't have an opinion, or we may fine you money. Is that fair?
Well, you're asking me with my coach hat on.
Yeah.
Boy, that's a tough call because, on the one hand, I think to some degree it actually protects coaches from themselves. And what I mean by that is, like, in the heat of the moment in the press conference after the game, if there was if coaches weren't worried about being fined, I think you would see them unload on officials constantly, and it would sometimes with justification and sometimes not. And I think it would really heighten the contentious relationship between coaches and officials and assigners and conferences and all that. So, I think in a sense it does protect coaches from themselves. But on the other hand, I think it's unfortunate that, you stifle the coaches from being able to express any opinion whatsoever on it in most cases. And, you'll hear them get up in the press conference, if I say anything about this, I'm going to get fined.
Yeah.
So I think that, some guy in Boeheim over the years, there have been instances where he's blasted officials and took the fine, So I think that, it's a tough call because you don't want every post game to deteriorate into just the coaches trashing the officiating. But on the other hand, it would be nice to get their perspective in a kind of level-headed and civilized way in a lot of situations.
Yeah, and I agree with you, right? If you lifted all fines, then, it's open season. But I do think that if I was a head coach, it would be ridiculous for me to say, hey, like, why? And see, Jim got smart to it. Boeheim got smart to it. Somebody would ask him about it, and he would go, what did you see? And he was like, well, no, I asked. He's like, no, but what did you see? Did you see a foul? And the guy would say no, and he's like, okay, well, most of the people in this room would agree with you. Let's move on. And then he goes, I can't get fined because you said it. I didn't say it, you said it. So, I think I know officials, I know players, I know head coaches, I know commissioners. So knowing in the people behind the scenes, so knowing everybody, I want there to be a world of respect because I know everybody, and well, not just because of that. I want people to respect people in general, but when I look at this situation, I'm looking at it from so many different angles because I know the Mike Kitzes of the world and the Dave Pasiaks and, and then the players that come in and out. I mean, I know the working parts of it. So I don't want to say, yeah, blast Mike Kitts, blast Brian Kersey, go after the... No, I'm not saying that. But at the same time, I think that they should be able to speak their mind. Now, Jim spoke his mind completely. Now, again, this is his son. And what I didn't like, Dave, and I know you're all about protecting your players and taking care of your players. The fact that Buddy's character was questioned, the fact that social media wanted to call him Hitler, the fact that people go from 0 to a billion in a half a millisecond, and this guy's the worst guy in the world, he should be kicked out of basketball, he's a horrible person, he's a terrible human being. And I'm sitting in the press conference while people who have media badges on that I question their warrant of wearing those badges to look at Cole Swider and Joe Girard III and ask them if they consider Buddy to be a good person, where Cole kind of looked at Joe and was very uncomfortable and kind of uncomfortably laughed, and then Joe just kind of stared into the abyss. I've known Buddy for at least 6 years, and this kid is the nicest guy. He's humble. He's been good to me his entire career. He has a fantastic game. We talk. He doesn't have a great game. We talk. The world's loving him. We talk. The world's hating him. We talk. What is your take on the social media side of things where a player makes a mistake, or any human being makes a mistake, because apparently there's a lot of people on Twitter that have never made a mistake ever, but that when you make a mistake, you're in this spotlight that I think social media actually was a detriment to Buddy because it was shared and talked about and the media wouldn't shut up about it all day long, that I feel like if we were in a world without social media and the constant instantaneous information, I think this may have not happened. I think the ACC, in my opinion, I think they were moved by the fact that the world was discussing it, and I think that worked against Buddy. But as a coach, what is your take on the fact that, him or any student athlete would have their character attacked and people would be threatening them on social media or bashing them on social media or questioning their worth as a human being after one mistake?
Yeah, I think you hit on the negative of the downside of social media. I think, and it, especially people, people forget that they're young people, college athletes, not yet professionals, although, with the money in college sports, some people would say it's professional athletics to begin with, but that's another conversation. But, there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of people throwing stones from glass houses in social media. And I think that, you want to go on there and you want to dissect the play and give you 2 cents on the play and all that, fine, that, more power to you. But to take it beyond that, where you don't know the young man and you're trying to draw a conclusion on that based on one act, I think it's absurd. I think, there's, and it extends beyond college athletics too. There's people that go on social media and I think they must have not a lot to do with themselves because they spend their time on social media looking to, tear down whoever, whether it's, college athlete, professional athletes, coaches, the leaders in our world, whatever. People don't or have a hard time on social media separating the act from the person, and I think that is really unfortunate in the downside of social media, and the reporters that cover it, I mean, they're like, like you said, like the reporters asking Buddy's teammates, what is, because of what happened in the game, does that make them a terrorist? I mean, some of those guys they're just looking for clickbait too, and I think we've kind of, media has changed, news media has changed, sports media has changed, and I think that there are people covering sports now, because we're such an in the moment and that we're driven to generate views and clicks and all that kind of thing, where we've lost a little journalistic integrity, I guess I would say.
Yeah.
In the sports media, sports news media, and in the media in general. I mean, look at how anything is covered, from COVID to world events to politics to whatever. I think we've lost a little bit of let's cover the news, or let's cover the story, and we've gotten around to like what angle can we take that's going to generate more feedback, more views, more clicks, more more responses on our website comment page, or our our social media posts or whatever. So I kind of got a little bit long-winded with that, but I think it's unfortunate that it's more than unfortunate. It's wrong that people in the traditional media, the social media, are drawing conclusions about Buddy Boeheim or any other athlete, based on a play they see in a game, when they really don't have anything beyond that, don't know the individual beyond that. So.
Yeah, and don't even call it long-winded. It's a complete thought. It's the right thought. If anything, I would say put more wind to it, Dave, because there's more to, discuss on that. And I tell people, I say, my job as a broadcaster is to give you the facts. Now, I'll give you my opinion, but I give you the facts. And if I have an opinion, then I back it up with facts, because if I don't back it up with facts, then my opinion can be flawed. And if my opinion is flawed, then why am I even giving it? So in my world, I was always taught, if you're going to take an opinion, back it up. And I ask people two things when they interact with Wake Up Call or any of the shows we do with Dan Tortora Broadcast Media. Two things, very simple. Be respectful, justify your opinion. Be respectful, justify your opinion. That's all you have to do. Somebody disagreed with you and I on social media yesterday when we talked about a coach leaving 5 seconds after their team is out of the tournament, and you disagree with it, I disagreed with it, and I was going to engage a discussion, but then the person referred to me as a clown, and I was like, you know what? If we're gonna throw out personal attacks from stranger to stranger, I'm not responding to you. You don't warrant my response, because you've already shown me that you have no respect for me, or for yourself, or for proper human etiquette. So, in my opinion, do I think a coach should be like, all right, we lost the tournament, bye? And their reaction was, well, players usually know because social media talks about it. No. Now that to me is a flawed statement in and of itself, because you and I both know that not every player knows when something's going on with a coach leaving, as well as the fact that a player should not find out from social media that their coach is leaving. They should not have to find that out. They should not find it on the ticker. I mean, when Doug Marrone left Syracuse, the way that some of these guys found out, it's not to have somebody told, like, hey, your coach is gone. What do you mean? And so, to me, social media should not be raising our children, and social media should not be telling you when your boss is leaving. So, I have a lot of qualms with all that stuff, but the reality of it all to me is social media has made people think that they're all broadcasters, they're all commentators on life, they all have a right to pretend like they have an education, and if they do have an education, did they have experience in the field? Do they know what it is to be a broadcaster? And I use the term media lightly, because the majority of the people in the room with me the day that that whole incident happened, the majority of people I would refer to as media was slim to none. And I would also say that in the Coach K press conference, when they lost to Virginia Tech, that there was someone that asked Coach K if he was going to be prepared for the NCAA tournament after losing so bad. And I took a step back and went, this guy has won over 11 and now 1,200 games. He has 5 national titles. He's been to 36 NCAA tournaments, and he's won 99 NCAA tournament games. And you're asking him if he's going to be prepared for the task at hand after 4 decades plus coaching. So, I think ultimately you and I both know that the media should state the facts and allow you to form an opinion. We live in a world today where the media gives their opinion based on no facts and tells you that it's the truth. And that is a danger zone, because if people start believing things without any facts to back it up, where are we heading? And I know that has something to do with basketball and also nothing to do with basketball, but we are a show where sports meets life, Dave. And I think, something that concerns me every single day is people presenting opinions as truth, and then people following that truth blindly is a very scary road.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head there, is that we have, beyond sports, like all aspects of the news and of reporting, I think we've blurred the line between reporting the news or reporting the facts and giving opinion. You see it everywhere from ESPN to the cable news networks to the internet websites where people are reporting, are presenting opinion as fact, presenting rumor as fact, and you blur the line between what's news and what's fact and what's opinion and rumor. And I think that's really at the root of a lot, and I think it's led to a lot of distrust in the media in our country too. And for people that take the time to kind of do a deep dive on whatever the topic is, and differentiate what's being put out there as opinion and what's being put, what's actually fact. I think that leads to their distrust in the media, and then for the people that don't and just accept me here in the media as fact, I think it kind of leads to a misguided or misinformed segment of society sometimes too. So I think that unfortunately the toothpaste is out of the tube, to in a sense on that with new media and the internet, and everybody can you can set up a website and be on equal footing with ESPN or ABC News or whatever. I think you're going to probably see more of it rather than less. So I think it's going to become more and more on each of us as individuals to really do our homework and for issues that matter to us. Is it opinion, or are they stating facts and reporting the news? Yeah. I think that's kind of where we're headed.
Yeah, and hopefully, there's enough people out there that feel the need to tell the truth, which I am compelled to do it every single day. If I say something and I'm not sure about it, then it's on me. It's like, okay, you got to look that up, Dan. You got to check. You got to make sure that you said the right thing. So, that's where it's at, and hopefully we can be better, because the world without personal responsibility isn't really much of anything, and the media being used as a weapon is not what it was supposed to be for. So it's supposed to be an impartial place for you to make your own mind up, not to be told what to think. As we shift back to basketball, here where sports meets life inside the Cafe Kubal studios, speaking on officiating before, the cool thing about this, Dave, is this is Division I, and the Division I men's basketball tournament. you being at Division III and it not being an official that was affecting an NVU-Lyndon game, I believe you can speak freely. So I don't I don't believe you could be fined for being a bystander to watching the NCAA Division I men's tournament. And off the air, you told me that you have not been excitingly, optimistically happy with the officiating of this year's NCAA tournament, and I'd love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, and there have been a bunch of games. Like I'll preface it by saying there have been a bunch of games where the officials have been a complete non-issue.
Yeah.
You know? And I'll give a little shout out to a couple guys I know, DJ Carsonson and Pat Driscoll. They've both gone 3 tournament games so far, and like I haven't really seen any issues with any of their crews. So hopefully they'll get a chance to continue on and they'll get games in the Sweet 16 and beyond. But there's also been a bunch of games where like obvious calls, with the game on the line, and officials, like it almost feels like the moment is too big for the officials. Sometimes we talk about the moment being too big for the players. So sometimes it feels like the moment has been too big for the officials. Going back to the Iowa-Richmond game in the first round, I mean, there was like a couple of no calls down the stretch of that game that were just absurd, that there was nothing called on the play. You go to the North Carolina game. It's a 25-point game. They eject the kid from North Carolina, which I thought was maybe a little bit much, but I understand why they gave him a flagrant 2. I probably thought it should have been a flagrant 1, but nevertheless, okay, so they eject him. That's fine. But then the whole way they were calling the game changed after that. And, players can adjust if you got a consistent whistle. And I'm a believer that, like, if it's a foul in the first 2 minutes of game, it's a foul with 20 seconds to go in a tie game too. And I mean, to a certain extent, in the history of basketball officiating, we always used to have an expression: the whistles favor the team with momentum. And I think there's always been a certain grain of truth to that.
Yeah.
But I think in this tournament where you got the best teams and players in the country, I think the officiating in some instances has not been up to snuff with the play in the games. I was watching, a lot of people probably didn't see it because it got over late last night, but maybe the best game of the second round was the Arizona TCU. And I thought, overtime game, both teams, and it was good basketball and high drama, which sometimes there have been games that haven't been particularly good basketball, but they've been high drama, or the reverse been true. But that was TCU Arizona was both last night. But even I think Avery Johnson was the color commentator, and he was even remarking in overtime that there wasn't consistency from the officiating crew on what was being called and not called at the end of regulation and in overtime. So I think that's what's frustrating. And in kind of big picture with officiating is, every year the NCAA, they come out with, these are the points of emphasis, and this is what we're going to call this year. And more times than not, it involves, cleaning up rough play, whether it's freedom of movement on the perimeters, or cleaning up post play, those kind of things. And the officials start out with good intentions early in the season, but by the time we get to February and then we get into postseason play, when they call in the games the way they have for 100 years. And Billis has been on to this a little bit about how, the game has become so physical. I think you watch major college basketball, and there's definitely more physical play that's allowed than there is in the NBA. And I think the difference is the NBA, the league several years ago, they said, we want to clean this up. And the officials all worked for the NBA, and they said, you will call this. And for about a half a season, there was a million fouls, and the games were really choppy, and the players adjusted. So you'll see like a lot more freedom of movement in an NBA game than a typical major college game. So I think the teams and coaches are onto that, and they they know that game on the line, something that's a foul in the first couple minutes is not going to get called in a lot of games. Not every game. I mean, there's some crews, like I said, that do a really good job. Driscoll got a little bit of criticism last night. What I thought was a really good call at the end of the game, where the guy came in and threw his leg out at the end, and Driscoll called the foul, and didn't see much there. Well, I mean, you're not watching the play, because it was, I thought it was a really good call. I just I'm not sure what the answer is, because officials in college basketball and college sports, they're all independent contractors, and they've got national coordinator of officials, and I know one of the goals of the NCAA is that you should get the same game, regardless of whether you're playing in the Big Ten or the ACC or the America East or Division I, Division III, whatever. You're supposed to get the same game, but in reality, doesn't always happen that way. So hopefully, the officials are supposed to be advance on merit, just like the teams. I know they get evaluated every round in the NCAA tournament. Like I said, I mentioned that Iowa-Richmond game. I thought those three guys should never get another game in the tournament, yet one of them got a game in the next round. So, there's a little bit of I guess free pass for some of the more senior and established officials, but hopefully as the tournament goes on and the cream rises to the top with officiating, we'll see less of those issues as we go along.
Yeah, and it's there are some of those calls. I mean, I was watching the games yesterday, and I'm going, that's a foul, because that foul was called in a game that I saw. That's a foul because that foul was, you know what I mean? It's like if I go to the Big East tournament and I see that, the guy goes up and he blocks with his left hand, and then he gets as he's getting a clean block with his left hand, he comes down with his right hand and he hits the guy in the arm. It's a foul. Well, why is it a foul, Dan? Because it's out at the Big East. Well, then in the ACC, there was one call yesterday where the guy didn't do anything with his hands. He went up, he went after the ball, cleanly was playing good defense. When he came down, they're saying that his leg that was extended straight out in the air, that the leg contacted the player, and it was and that was a tripping foul, or whatever the heck they called it as. And I'm looking at this going, if I'm going to get a rebound and my body's my legs here and my arms here, that's a normal. He didn't do anything with his leg. He didn't kick it. He didn't, he would have to be a pretty awesome martial artist to pull off what they were alleging that he did. But I'm looking at this going, at what point is a foul or is it not a foul? And when I went from the ACC tournament to the Big East tournament, the cool thing about that juxtaposition in the 20 minutes apart when I was at those two tournaments this year is that here I am at the Barclays in the ACC, and everything in its mother is a foul. And then I go to the Big East, and they're playing more physically, and the officials weren't calling the foul unless they had to. And there was contact, just good old basketball, and it's under 10 seconds to play, and it's good old basketball, body on body, and they let him play. And then again, they let him play. And then another one, it was so clear, you could see the official didn't want to affect the outcome of the game. They didn't want to be the third team. And with 2.8 seconds left, they had to call this foul. And so they did. And the foul ended up being the difference in the game. The free throws were made, and they win. So, for me, I'm watching, and I had because I had the juxtaposition of literally going to a game and then getting on the subway and going to another game of another conference. I'm saying to myself, they call all the stuff, and here's a bunch of guys being able to play. By the way, there was a Big East, and I'm not going to say the player or the team, there was a Big East moment that was like the Buddy moment. It wasn't a jab to the stomach, but it was a very clear shoulder to the collarbone of a guy's teammate was knocked, and the person who knocked that teammate had the teammate of that individual run between them as they were getting ready for an out-of-bounds play, and as he was going by, shouldered him in the collarbone, like, back off my teammate. And I was like, wow, that's just what Buddy did. But it wasn't called, it wasn't looked at, it wasn't talked about in social media. It was a different conference. So, I mean, I'm with you that if you're going to call it, call it. And going from one conference tournament to another conference tournament, I can tell you that I saw in real time in two different arenas with two different conferences, games that were like, this game's going to be 17 hours because they're stopping all the time, to they're letting them play old school basketball. And it shouldn't be different, because when you get to the NCAA tournament and you got officials from all over the country, the Big East is like, we play physical. In the ACC, you can't even like touch someone with your pinky. So, you know, I think it really confuses players, like you were talking about, to say, well, this conference is allowed to play on, this conference is stopped all the time. These officials call things most of the time. These officials never call it. There should be, I know it's human error, and I know that's going to happen, but conferences shouldn't look as different as they look to me within a single day. And that to me was very concerning.
Yeah, I just want to kind of respond to, because you hit you hit a nerve with me on something.
Okay.
I can't stand the two things when people say the officials are letting them play and the officials don't want to decide the game. And I think both of those statements, which you hear all the time, they make my skin crawl, because I think when you're an official, you are deciding the game when you don't make a call. Okay, when you decide that you're not going to call a foul because it's a tie game and there's 20 seconds to go, you are deciding the game. You've made that decision. You're deciding the game. You're not letting the players decide the game. Okay, you need to call. If it's a foul, you call it. If it's a violation, you call it. If it's not, you don't. Okay, and so that whole, people say, well, they let the players decide the game. No, they did not. If you're not willing to make a call when there's a call to be made, you did not let the players decide the game. You did. And the whole letting them play, that one makes my skin crawl too, because when you're not blowing the whistle, you're not letting the players play. You're penalizing the skilled player and rewarding the guy who's being physical. I remember Billis making a comment a couple of years ago about how defense in basketball is not defense in some instances, in some conferences and whatnot. It's not, they don't play defense, it's organized fouling, because players and coaches know that not everything is going to be called. Yeah. And I think that, kind of to your point about consistency, I do think the NCAA is trying on this, but because officiating is kind of managed on a conference-by-conference basis, that's where you see exactly what you're talking about the difference between like a Big East game and an ACC game, because they're answering to different assigners and different conference offices. I think if there was a way that was more national, that might help. They send out, I get them, every coach in the country gets them once a week. You get this guy Brad Taylor sends out rules interpretation videos, and one of the big things they talk about was call the first displacement in the post. Whether it's the offensive player backing down or the defensive player forearming, you're supposed to call the first displacement. Well, I'm watching in the NCAA tournament, I'm watching Gonzaga play. The big kid from Gonzaga gets displaced. Guy from Memphis backs him down. He gets displaced, no call. Gets displaced again. They call him for a flop warning. And yet I'm, probably 10 times this winter on rules videos, they made a point about how you're supposed to call the first displacement. Yet we get in the NCAA tournament, and they call the game the way they've called it for 100 years. So that, as a coach, that's the thing that frustrates me. And I probably get under the skin of some of our officials, because, we'll get guys in Division III games, and I say, why do I waste my time watching the interpretation videos when that's not what's being done when we actually get on the court? So, that whole piece really irks me. And like the broadcasters and fans and all, to let the players decide the game and let the players play. No, you're not. When you don't make a call, then you're not letting the players decide the game. And the other piece of it that I think has, like, it's, to me, I don't know how you feel, Dan, but the instant replay piece in the NCAA tournament has been borderline annoying. There have been instances where they've gone to replay and taken several minutes and still come back with something different than what the TV view seems obvious to any viewer and the broadcasters and whatnot. So I think that, and the other thing that I think that, like, they're so used to going to replay in the last couple minutes that I think it's almost become a crutch for officials in some instances. And you can only replay certain things, like, inbounds, out of bounds, who to go off of. I like the idea that they're going to use replay to make sure we get the call right, but I think we got to get better at doing it on a timely basis and not using it as simply a crutch, if that makes sense.
No, it does, and I want to go to your point and clarify what I was saying, because I agree with you. If it's a foul, it's a foul. You have to call it, and that's not what I was saying about let them play. What I was saying about the Big East was I appreciate good defense, good quality, clean defense. It's a contact sport. We're going to contact each other. And where my frustration lies is, as the game has evolved, or in my opinion, devolved in certain instances, the big man has been, like, in certain games that I've seen, kind of erased, in the sense of, if you're 6'10" and higher, everything you do is a foul. And the frustration comes to me of the fact that big men have kind of learned, like, okay, I put my hands up, I got my hands up, and I've seen plays in this tournament where the guy's got his hands straight up, and a player might come into him, they call the foul, and he's looking at the official going like, hey, I mean, what else am I supposed to do? I saw it with Jesse Edwards in Syracuse. So the point that I'm trying to make on my side is, I want players to not be afraid to block a shot. I want players to want to be physical and want to get after it. So I agree with your points, because where I am going with this, even though we sound like we're on two different ends, is if it's a foul, it's a foul, and it needs to be called, and it needs to be called every time. That's point one. Point two is there needs to be consistency, and one conference can't look so different than another conference. Point three is I want players to be able to be physical. I don't want an official to say, that's a foul, I'm not going to blow my whistle because it's toward the end of the game, or I'm an official and I want to become famous, and so I'm going to open my mouth. Because there was a Lemoyne game this year where there's 3 officials running around the court, and I can't tell you enough how the official missed a blatant travel, and then they call a foul on what was maybe minimal contact, if anything. I don't even know if the guy hit anything but the ball, or tried to get after the ball, and the shot was awful. But they allowed, in like the final seconds of the game, three free throws. It decided the game. And so where I'm going with this is, A, if it's a foul, call it all the time. B, conferences shouldn't look drastically different. C, the point that I was really trying to make about let them play and don't be the third team on the court, what I meant by that was, when you, to your point, when you don't call something, you're ruining the game. And when you call everything that is any type of, I mean, okay, for instance, in the NFL or in college football, they say there's holding on every play. It's just what the officials call. Well, in college basketball, I can go back and watch all the games from this weekend and tell you, he hit that arm, he hit that arm, he hit that arm, he hit that arm. None of those were called. He barely touched him. That was called. That was called a flagrant one. I don't know how. So we can go back and assess them all. And I think what I'm saying is let them play, meaning let them be physical to the point where they're just playing good basketball, where it's not a blatant foul. I'm not saying let somebody punch somebody in the face because there's 2 seconds left. But I'm saying if there's a clean block, if this guy grazes someone's pinky as 95% of him smack that ball away, then, let him have it. Because yesterday in the Arizona game, in overtime against TCU, I can go back to a couple of those Arizona plays, and I could call those, I could call that an offensive over the back. I also could call one of those plays that was really good where the guy muscled his way up and dunked the ball. As before he muscled his way up to dunk the ball, there was 2 sets of hands on that ball. It should have been a jump ball. So, we can go back and do all this. And what I'm saying is the officials should have made that jump ball call. But again, momentum, like you said, excitement, like you said, Arizona's the number 1 seed. They let it play on. So where I'm getting at is if it's just good defense, I don't want to hinder someone from going to block a shot because he thinks he's going to foul out in the first 3 minutes. And at the same time, I want an official to be involved when it is a foul. I don't like when officials involve themselves in such a way where everything seems like a foul. So if those points kind of make sense too, I understand your side, and I'm not making a blanket policy. I'm saying let them play when the defense is strong because there's going to be normal contact in the run of play, and that when it is a foul, call it. But when it's questionable, especially when it's late, let them play the game. And there were times where I feel like big men on Gonzaga, big men on Syracuse, there's literally nothing they could have done without it being called a foul. And if I was a center at that point, I would stop playing hard defense because I would be terrified that if I try to block anything, I'm going to be out of the game. That's where I was going with that.
Yeah, I think what we're all looking for is on 2 different levels. I think on like the micro level in the individual game, I think players and coaches and teams can adjust if the game's, you get a sense in the first 5 or 10 minutes of the game, how's the game being called, right? And so as long as that's consistent from opening tap to the final horn, players and coaches will adjust. And, if it's a tight whistle or a loose whistle, whatever, early, as long as it stays that way over the course of the game, players and coaches can adjust. It's when guys aren't sure, is this a foul today or is it not? Okay, I think that's when the game becomes hard for players and coaches. And, I think the classic example, that was that Carolina game the other day where how the game was called changed dramatically after they ejected the kid from Carolina with about 10 minutes to go. So I think that, just being consistent from start to finish, this is how the game is being called today. And I think the more macro global issue is there shouldn't be that much of a difference from game to game how the game is being called. I think you should get the same game on Saturday that you got on Wednesday. You should get the same game in the ACC that you get in the Big East. You should get the same game in Division III that you get in Division I. And I think, like I said, the NCAA, I think on one hand is trying with that by, having national coordinator officials and putting out these rules, interpretations and whatnot. But I think the implementation of that from conference to conference, area of the country to area of the country, game to game, crew to crew, I think the actual implementation of that leaves a lot to be desired sometimes.
Yeah, and I agree. I loved watching the Big East because of its physicality. I got frustrated with watching other things because it just and it's also teams. I shouldn't watch a game where I'm watching a Duke game at the ACC tournament and Duke gets 3 fouls that Virginia Tech didn't get, or Miami doesn't get, the same call on the other end that Duke got 2 minutes before. It's consistency. All we're looking for is consistency. I love the physical game. I love when bodies bang underneath. Now, and if it's a foul, it's a foul, but not everything is a foul. And I think that is where we need to differentiate, and it is. It's hard to watch some of these games. Like the TCU thing, I will go back and I'll watch that. Like, before he went up with the ball, he was struggling. He was struggling because TCU and Arizona had hands on the ball. It should have been a jump ball. but they let him play, and he dunked it. And they win by, by 85-80, I believe. So, that could have been the change of the game, right? They could have got the jump ball. Possession arrow was to TCU. Then TCU goes down. Let's say they hit a 3. Now it's a 2-point game. Now there's 17 seconds left. Could have changed the entire game. So that was a missed call that wasn't a foul. So, I think there's always going to be human error, but there has to be consistency, because inconsistency with any product, if you went to your favorite burger joint and on Mondays and Wednesdays the burger tasted great, and on Tuesdays the chef that was there on Tuesday didn't know what the heck they were doing, and the burger was never put together correct, it was always missing something, well, you can't be like, well, this is my favorite restaurant on Mondays and Wednesdays. So, and I know a restaurant like that where they're like, hey, when the owner's here, I come here because I know that he's cooking and the food's great. When he's not here, I don't come. And that level of inconsistency is going to affect you in a big way. So, with that being said, for one of the most consistent on this broadcast, Mr. Dave Pasiak, always here to give his analysis. Dave, I'm going to have you back here because we didn't get into like the game of it all. We got very official with it, which is great having Mike follow you up here and give his thoughts. So the show theme today of making it official in the morning after the madness makes perfect sense. But I'd love to break down some of these games with you. I will ask you very quick, of the Sweet 16, what are you most excited about? To let people know, Gonzaga, Duke, as well as, that's what I have here going. So Gonzaga, Arkansas, Texas Tech, Duke in the West. And then Arizona, Houston, Michigan, Villanova in the South. And then in the Midwest, we have Iowa State and Miami, as well as Kansas and Providence. And in the East, we have North Carolina, UCLA, Purdue, and St. Peter's. What are you most excited about? And is there still a dominant team that you think is existing right now?
Well, I think Gonzaga is the best team, but they've shown a little vulnerability in both of their first 2 games. Against Georgia State, they struggled for a bit and then finished real strong. Same thing, Memphis had them on the ropes, and they really played well in the second half and closed out a talented team that was playing very well. I think I think the best matchup of the Sweet 16 is Arizona-Houston. I think that's a terrific matchup. Houston, to me, was grossly underseeded as a 5 seed. I think that's a team that has always been a really good defensive team. They've been an inconsistent shooting team, but they've shot it really well in their first round game against UAB, and shot it pretty well, against Illinois. I think they're a team that, if they're making shots at all, they can be really, really good. And I think Arizona is very talented as well. So if you're going to ask me one game, if you're only going to want to watch one game in the Sweet 16, I would opt for that one. There's 4 double-digit seeds alive, which is the most I can remember in quite a long time. There'll be at least one double-digit getting to the Elite 8 because Iowa State and Miami play each other. But good matchups. I think that Gonzaga, everybody thought Gonzaga had maybe the easiest path for the 1 seeds, and then now you look at it, that's the only region that's chalk where the top 4 have advanced. So, Arkansas is a little offensively challenged, I think, at times. So, I think Gonzaga will probably get past them. I think if Duke can beat Texas Tech, I think a regional final between Gonzaga and Duke would have a lot of drama, and I think Duke could be a major obstacle to Gonzaga winning it. But Villanova's been a little under the radar. I think the great story of the tournament is Iowa State going from 22 to Sweet 16, along with St. Peter's is the other great story of the tournament. So, a lot of good basketball. North Carolina, I think, is playing really well. Providence is a team that has found a way to win. Some good games, coming up this week, and hopefully next time we get on, we'll have a lot more to chew about, I'm sure.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good. The top half of my bracket very much alive. The bottom half of my bracket almost completely dead. So my East bracket not looking fun at all. However, my 2 teams to make it to the championship are still alive, and there's a lot more green in the West and the South for me right now. So with that being said, Mr. Pasiak, as always, I appreciate you. Thank you for being on the show, and thank you for the open conversation and a look at different angles of different things. So as always, I appreciate having you on, and I will definitely want to break down some of these games with you very soon here, so I'll be in touch.
Sounds great. Look forward to it as always.
All right, take care.
We'll see you, Dan. Bye-bye.
See you. That coming from Dave Pasiak once again here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life. We're going to take a step aside here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for a fast break. When we come back, we got very official, and we're going to keep it official, as we will be here with longtime NCAA official of over 4 decades and coordinator of men's basketball officiating for multiple conferences now, Mr. Mike Kitts will be joining us right after this fast break on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, where sports meets life. Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicoli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicoli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there. And of course, you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100. And also find them on myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying, in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
PB&J's Lunchbox, the food truck that you love finding all throughout central and upstate New York, now has a street-side cafe. So when you're craving their traditional favorites as well as their out-of-box amazing menu items, you can now head to 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. Located just minutes from the highway, the Thruway, Destiny USA, and Onondaga Lake Parkway, PB&J's Lunchbox Street-Side Cafe is there for you Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner all throughout the day. Get breakfast for dinner, dinner for lunch, whatever you fancy, including their award-winning grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Find them at 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. PB&J's Lunchbox, where we love to know what's in your lunchbox. As a patient, what do we want? To be cared for, to be listened to, and to have someone walk us through the process on our path to victory. Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics does all of those things beautifully, with Dr. Mark Petropoli leading the team on 791 West Genesee Street in Skaneateles, New York, located minutes from beautiful Skaneateles Lake. Whatever your injury may be from head to toe, preventative care, rehab, physical therapy, laser therapy, and surgery are all available at Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, where they care about us, they listen to us, and they understand that everyone's path to victory is a little bit different. Let them help you on yours by calling 315-685-7544 to make your appointment today. That's 315-685-7544. And find out more information at victorysportsmedicine.com. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt, and also on youtube.com, as well as on facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, and on facebook.com/livenowdt. So with that being said, we're in hour number 2 of this week of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, fully into March Madness and fully into the conversation of all of these amazing games around the country. And of course, somebody that I respect, appreciate, consider part of my extended family. And I got invited to the family Christmas party. That's all I know. So Mr. Mike Kitts, Mike's son, the whole family, to the entire Kitts family, thank you for all that you have done here in our community and beyond, because I appreciate you so very much. And Mike has been an official of over 4 decades, as well as now a current coordinator of men's basketball officiating, and not only one of my favorite humans, but a guy who COVID affected in the beginning, and Mike said, you go back to your whole COVID. And so, like, very strong individual on and off the court. Let's bring him in. Mr. Kitts, how we doing?
Good, Dan. How you doing? Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Looking forward to chatting a little bit. Give me a few insights as far as the NCAA tournament's going on.
Yeah, so, I mean, I got to ask you this one right off the bat, because, you know, I obviously like to take my time here looking at all of these games, and some of them yesterday, you know, recording some, go back and watch and whatnot. I got to ask you about the Arizona TCU overtime. I was just talking about it with Dave Pasiak, and it's, you know, we always talk about, is this a foul? Is this a foul? Is that, you know, that was called, that wasn't called. But in the case of the Arizona moment toward the end of the game in overtime, when the ball was underneath the basket and there was a tussle for the ball off of an offensive rebound, seemingly TCU and Arizona had hands on the ball. There was a time period where where the Arizona player was trying to get the ball up to the basket, but couldn't because it looked like a jump ball. Nothing was called in that time period, and then they ended up, you know, dunking the ball home and winning by 5. I have to ask you if you saw what I saw, or I'm completely wrong. Should that have been called a jump ball?
Yeah, it should have been. Even a play in that regulation at half court where the kid stole it for Arizona, dunked it to tie the game up. I thought that was a foul that should have been taken at that particular time, but there's been a few situations in some of the games. I think the judgment calls either not call the fouls or call a foul. There was a few situations it just didn't look good. The optics looked terrible as far as some of the plays.
You know, and so let's stick with that, the games yesterday, and let's stick with the Arizona TCU game. How much of it do you think was left on the cutting room floor, so to speak? I mean, I appreciate that I'm not crazy here and saw that as a jump ball, but what did you see in that game? Because TCU, right, very physical, getting after it, going after the boards. Arizona physical as well. A lot of play underneath by these teams. What stood out the most to you from that game? I know we just mentioned a couple of the plays, but was there something else, or overall a note that you wanted to make about what you saw officiating-wise in the Arizona TCU game, as most of us were watching that game last night as it was the final game and it went into overtime.
Yeah, the physicality, where they let it go at both ends of the court, which, if you're going to let it go at one end, hopefully let it go at the other end. But it just gets to a point where it probably becomes too physical, and you let it go to a certain point. Now you can't pull it back in because you're going to change the whole optics of the game, as far as how you're going to call the game. And I think from the beginning, they probably should have clamped down a little bit sooner to get the physicality out of it. But then it got to a point it was too late, and then they continued to do it, which I don't mind doing that. I think the coaches like the consistency, but there was just a few plays in that game as well as a few other games. It just didn't seem to fit the games. But when J.D. Collins goes to decide who moves on and who doesn't. Now, this weekend, 96 guys refereed, and next weekend they're going to pick 36 to referee for the regionals. So it goes from 96 to 36, and if you're one of those 36, you got a shot at the Final Four.
Yeah, and in J.D. Collins, we've talked about him before, having the opportunity to decide as the bracket itself, the teams are deciding who moves forward. The officials are in a bracket as well as who advances to the next round and whatnot. You're one of the people that J.D. Collins has entrusted to go around the country and to review these officials. What have you seen from what you've reviewed so far?
I was in Dayton for the first four, where you had, I think Indiana, Wyoming, Rutgers, Notre Dame, and Texas, Corpus Christi, and Texas Southern, and there's one other teams. But I was there to watch the officials. Official from Syracuse, Pat Driscoll, was at that site when I was there. They had that double overtime game with the Rutgers Notre Dame game, which was a great college basketball game. I have to chart calls when I'm there. One's the right call, two's the wrong call. I got to watch it 3 or 4 times on the TV Sport replay. It could go either way, but for the most part, I thought the officiating in the Dayton was really good. I know that JD was telling me they had 11 new guys that got in this year, and the first female, Amy Bonner, refereed out in Portland. She was the first female to do a tournament. And but in Dayton, I thought the officiating overall was really, really good.
And when you had the opportunity to go, I want to go to the first four initially here. When you went to those games, what were your ultimate takeaways from that to kind of go maybe a little bit deeper into what you said? When you were out in Dayton, Ohio for the first four, what were some of the biggest notes that you took maybe overall? And was there consistency is another, because that's Dave and I talked about that a lot. So how consistent were the games called from piece to piece in the first four? And then, what were the ultimate maybe big notes for you to kind of pull aside and say, okay, here are the things that I need to happen moving forward?
I think the biggest thing that a lot of the announcers and the average fan don't understand is what a legal defender is playing defense. A legal defender is 2 feet on the floor facing the offensive player. He is allowed to move backwards and sideways. And we get these announcers on TV going, well, he's moving. Yeah, he's allowed to move illegally. And we got the offensive player dribbling into the defensive player who's legal. And the announcers really don't understand that rule with the offense creating all the contact. It can't be a foul on the defense. Sometimes it should be an offensive foul. And I've seen that, quite a bit. I think it's refereed inconsistent a lot, and but for the most part, out in Dayton, that was refereed pretty well. But I'm seeing some plays as I go along watching after I left Dayton. It's just not refereeing those plays with a legal defender guarding the offensive player.
And with you kind of assessing that first four, I know you had made mention of some names and whatnot. What was so impressive to you about those first few games? Did you think that there was a level of consistency amongst the entire group, or, did some kind of show out more than others?
I thought it was pretty consistent. The other thing is, for the most part, you had coaches there that let you referee. They weren't involved in officiating. And when you got referees, coaches that just kind of coach and question you, it puts you at ease a little bit more rather than a coach refereeing. We had one coach in Dayton who was refereeing every play. And I'm not going to say who it was, but it just, it gets to a point where I tell referees, if you're more worried about what the coach is saying than refereeing a game, you have to address them and tell them to knock it off. And they did that to the coach out there where it just got to a point where it was every play he's questioning your calls. And finally the referee went over and said, look, that's enough. And, they did just like I'm talking to you right now. No yelling, screaming. Coach, you got to get back to coaching, let us referee, and let's move on. But, they finally had to do that. They probably let him go a little bit too long, but for the most part, when the coaches let you ref and question you on certain plays, it's fine, but when it's every play, you got to knock it off.
Well, and that's the thing, too, is I wanted to discuss that with you, is how, from the games that you've been to and the games that you've seen in the NCAA tournament thus far this season, how has it been? Because I know some coaches immediately are on the officials within the first minute of the game. Some of them kind of pick and choose their spots, and at other times, it can kind of come and go. But there are, coaches that are very vibrant to, every moment and very animated in, throughout the entire game. What is the line, I guess? Because I know, officials are human beings, but what would you like the line to be going off of what you just said?
It's when the coaches get to the point where they're refereeing every play. It's not questioning you about a particular judgment call or anything. They're giving a travel signal. They're giving a pushing signal. And all that stuff by the NCAA rules is supposed to be, should be able to do that. And when they do that, it's supposed to be a technical foul. But I know in the NCAA tournament, there's a little bit more leeway with this. And it's got to a point where I think you have to understand the personality of a particular coach and then deal with it from there. And you get some coaches who want to, they feel more comfortable maybe talking to you more. And, listen to a point, but it can't be a rules interpretation of every play. So it's a fine line between letting them speak and now he gets involved in officiating too much and you got to put an end to it.
Yeah, and it's definitely interesting, but, Jamie Dixon, toward the end of the game, and obviously I'm not there to see the whole game, but from what I could see on television last night, Jamie was animated down the stretch to go back to the TCU game, and I think rightly so. As an official, where, for you, is it swearing? Is it name calling? I mean, beyond, trying to officiate every play, where would you tee up a coach? Because we've seen a lot of these coaches walk out onto the court, come to center, come to the, center of the sideline, go right in front of the scorer's table and whatnot to like the nth degree where they're almost heading to the other coach's bench. So we've seen coaches leave their box. We've seen coaches come out onto the floor. We've seen coaches jump up and down. So at what point do you think the line is drawn beyond what you just said about, trying to officiate every play? Where do you tee a coach up?
If he's been reffing every play, the most important thing, if a coach gets personal with you and makes a personal statement like you effing stink or whatever like that, when they get personal, it's automatic. It's just going to be a technical foul. The other thing with if he's stopping, if he waves you off, it's an automatic technical foul. You can't wave a referee off. He comes on the court. A lot of times he'll start in the coaching box and run down to the end line, the baseline, and charge a referee and make a comment, stomping his feet, technical foul. I mean, nobody wants to be embarrassed out there. There's a way of asking a question and getting an answer. And if you can't do that, you're an adult. You're supposed to behave like an adult. You got to know what to say, how to say, and when to say. So most of the coaches get it, but I went to a lot of Jamie's games when he was at Pittsburgh in the Big East, and I always liked Jamie Dixon. He's a very competitive guy, and he got more animated last night than I've ever seen him get animated. So it's a big game. So Maybe they let him go a little bit longer because of the situation and the magnitude of the game. But overall, most of the time, he's a pretty good guy.
Now, I want to speak with you, speaking here with Mike Kitts, a longtime NCAA official and a current coordinator of men's basketball officiating for numerous conferences here. Mike, there's a few different places to go to here, and one of them is, I know you used to work with what I call the MAC, because it's not the MAC, it's got two A's, so you got to kind of bat a little bit, the MAC, but being connected to that, you obviously know St. Peter's University. They're a 15 seed. They defeated the almighty Kentucky, who is a 2 seed. And now St. Peter's is going on to the Sweet 16 as a 15 seed. So your thoughts on St. Peter's, a team that many people around the country probably didn't know about, but you obviously worked very closely with the MAC at that, for many years. And in those years, came across the St. Peter's Peacocks.
Yeah, Shaneen Holloway coaches St. Peter's, and Shaneen played for Seton Hall when I was refereeing the Big East. And he was always a good, always a good kid. They probably, in Jersey City, they probably have the least budget of anybody in the Metro Atlantic Conference. Something went down the wrong way. But for the word on the street with Shaneen is that he's probably going to get, if Kevin Willard leads to go to Maryland, Shaneen will probably get the Seton Hall job. And I'm glad for him. He's a very good coach. The talent he's got, way below the teams he beat between Kentucky and Murray State. And I'm glad for him that he's going there. He's got to play Purdue next. That's going to be. I don't know if they got anybody can match up with those two big guys inside for Purdue. So that's going to be a tough game for them.
Yeah, and we look at the fact, like you said, I mean, you knew him when he was playing at Seton Hall, and having that connection there. Just what that does for you to say, to see a coach be successful when you used to officiate the games that he was playing in. Just what that does. And obviously, I don't want to make you feel old, Mike, but because to me, you're very young. To me, you've always stayed very, obviously connected to a lot of different things in life, and you keep your mind sharp. And so, to me, and my grandmother always told me, age is a state of mind. So, looking at the fact that you saw him running around as a player, now he's a coach and on the upswing. Just what that means to you, and how that kind of like hits you when you're like, oh wow, the head coach at St. Peter's, I had you when you were a kid, running around the Big East, and now he has an opportunity to not only make history with St. Peter's, but potentially return to the Big East.
Yeah, that's always been his ultimate goal. I see him in the summer times at camps when he's recruiting, and you kind of get a feel for certain players who becomes coaches are going to make it, and I always believe he's going to make it. I'm sure it comes across really well when he goes to a home to visit a particular family who's recruiting a kid. I can see him doing a good job, and the parents liking him. He does all the right things. He's a little animated on the sidelines, but that's his personality. It was like that when he played also. So for him to get in the position he's in right now, after all the hard work between playing when he played there at Seton Hall and coaching, he deserves to get a break, and hopefully he gets something happens, he gets a bigger job.
That coming from Mike Kitts here, speaking on Mr. Holloway of the St. Peter's Peacocks, their head coach who played for Seton Hall. And Mike, to keep with coaching here and keep with the color blue, Coach K is back in the Sweet 16. He has won 99 NCAA tournament games. This is his 36th NCAA tournament appearance. He won his 1200th overall game in the victory over Michigan State, and he is now heading back to the Sweet 16. And when you look at everything that is Mike Krzyzewski, a.k.a. Coach K, when we take a look at everything that he's brought to it, I want to make sure I don't miss anything here. But the other piece of Coach K in taking a look at his history is the fact that in winning this 1200th game and doing everything that he has done up to this point and everything else I mentioned. This is his 26th Sweet 16 appearance. Couple questions. Number one, what are your thoughts on Coach K's farewell tour and the way he decided to let everybody know in advance, John Shire is going to be taking over. This is going to be my final year, so everybody knew before the season started. What are your thoughts on his farewell tour? And number two, what is Coach K like on the sidelines? How do you consider him as a coach in the heat of the moment?
I think everything he's done this year is the right way to do it. Let people know up front what they're going to do. I ref John Shire when he played there. Good kid. But, Coach K is a very competitive guy. His juices get going. You got to be firm with him when you're referee. He looks if somebody's weak, he's going to get on that particular person. But everything he's gotten, he's worked hard. It's been nothing but the ultimate professional in everything he's done. And he's continued to do things the right way by letting people know what's going to happen this year as far as going forward. And I enjoyed roughing his games. I mean, you had to be on your toes, and he's probably a little bit smarter than I am, so I had to be careful what I said and how I said it. So, but it was fun to referee his games.
Well, and I was gonna, like you said, and I'm not surprised. You said you got to be on, that he would go after an official that maybe is not sure of themselves. What are your thoughts of that? I mean, and did you ever feel in the moment intimidated by Coach K?
No, I never did. Not really with anybody, to be honest with you. I had a job to do. They had a job to do, and when they crossed the line with me, I would say that's enough. And when I said that's enough, if something happened after that, he left the play, or he maybe questioned a foul, and I would give a technical foul. I was kind of, once I drew the line, they know if they wanted to go on any further, they're going to have to pay the penalty.
Which coaches do you think tried to test your mettle the most, in your opinion? Like, you mentioned Coach K, and again, I'm not surprised that he would kind of pick at an official to see how confident they were in their calling. Which coaches with Coach K do you think are the ones that really tried to make sure if you knew what you were talking about?
I think when you find out the personnel, they got strong personalities. Coach K has one. Coach Huggins had a strong personality when he left his games. Coach Calhoun had a strong personality. And when I say strong personality, they thought they were right most of the time, and they thought that maybe the ref was wrong. But, I just, when I left their games and I knew it was 100% right, I'm really not going to listen to them. If it's a 50-50 call, and I think a little bit, but, even though Huggins, that's his personality, he gets into it. But when the game's over with him, it's over with. I mean, I had a situation in the Midwest final one year out Salt Lake City with Huggins, and he was at Cincinnati at the time. They played Gonzaga, and I ejected Coach Huggins from the game out in Salt Lake City. And that year I went to the Final Four. But if I went to because I threw him out, I never knew that. But he had to leave the game. So.
And Mike, it's never easy to toss a coach. How bad does a coach have to be to get two technicals?
This situation, when I watched the film, I've watched it a few times. Coach Huggins wanted a foul on a play at the elbow, and I didn't think the kid got fouled. None of us had a whistle. And he has a way of saying things he drops a lot of F-bombs, okay? And
yeah.
I said, Coach, if you drop another F-bomb, we're going to have to give you a technical foul. So he did. So I didn't want to give him the second one, so I walked away with my back to him. And the other officials, I didn't know at the time until I watched the film, is that I turned around to center circle, he's right behind me. And what the other officials should have done is as they saw him walking behind me, they should have gave him the second technical, and that was two technicals and you're gone, but they didn't. So I turned around and tackled up, and he had to go. And then the same situation, I went across half court, and this guy sitting at the press row takes his headset off, and he drops about 10 F-bombs on me, and he's a radio announcer for the Cincinnati the team. So I said, you're ejected too. He goes, you can't throw me out. I'm the radio guy. So, okay, we'll see about that. So I went back across the court, got the NCAA ref, and it was the CBS game, and they had a circle with a guy's head around it. And then about 2 minutes later, there's a circle, nobody's sitting there, and he was gone. So, and then I went to the Final Four there.
So what you're saying, Mike, is you got some pull. You know, you kicked a broadcaster out mid-broadcast for dropping 10. Now, first of all, I don't know what radio station he was on. If you get caught with one F-bomb, it's $350,000. So if he's dropping 10 of these, I would hope that he's off the air, or else the radio station he worked for was spending over $1 million for that guy to sit in that chair that day.
He was with that guy that used to be in Syracuse, Dave. It was a Cincinnati radio station. I can't remember the guy, but he still does the Cincinnati games on the radio. But I can't remember his name. The other guy who I threw out passed away about a year ago.
Oh my goodness!
And every game after I threw him out, they would say this is his 541st game that has been ejected since Mike Kidd stole out.
See, but there has to be, you know, and I don't feel like we see a lot of ejections anymore. I mean, for flagrant twos, yeah, but we don't see a lot of like the double technical. Why do you think that is in today's basketball?
I think that the coaches know when to stop. Was anybody ejected this year? I can't remember in any of my games. No, like you're right. It really Huggins got ejected the last game of the season at home against Kansas. Or was it at Kansas? He was only 9 minutes and 45 seconds into the game, and he got 2 technical fouls, and he was gone the last game before the Big 12 tournament started. And
there also I did fact check myself on this thing here. The Villanova UConn game in the regular season, Dan Hurley was ejected.
Oh yeah, he did.
And Hurley is, I feel like what I got from the way that people respond to Dan Hurley, he's a very when I said like on it from the first play of the game, I guess maybe that he could be that litmus test that if he thinks something's a foul at like the 19-14 mark of the first half, like he's upset as if it's like the final 3 seconds of the game. So, go ahead.
Yeah, Danny's relentless. I mean, I left him at Seton Hall, and he was fine as a player. Then he got to be a coach. I mean, I know he's a high school coach in New York City at one of the schools I can't remember. But then he was at Wagner with his brother Bobby, and then Bobby, I think, went to Arizona, and then Danny went to UConn. But it's the whole game. He just doesn't let up. It gets to a point as a referee that just you want to say to him, "Do I get anything right out here?" I mean, it's just he's just relentless. But that's the way his personality. His father was the same way when he coached at St. Anthony's, and Bobby's the same way at Arizona State. So it's just they saw what his father did when he was coaching. They do the same thing. So it's one thing after another. Nothing's ever right with him.
Well, and Dan Hurley this year getting ejected in February of this year when he was ejected in the game. Now, his first technical was assessed to him after arguing a call, slapping the scorer's table, and screaming, which led to a technical foul with 4:53 remaining in the half. Then he waved his arms to egg on the crowd, and the crowd erupted, and that was the second technical. I never heard of that before, that, okay, he gets a technical foul, he's pissed, and then he's like, all right, guys, like, let's all get upset. How often does that happen? Has that ever happened in any of your trails, Mike, that an official got a second technical foul after getting the first one and then egging on the crowd to support him?
NCAA says sportsmanship. That's all they want to do. I mean, that's not sportsmanship, getting the crowd going after you get a technical foul. There again, you're disrespecting the referee. You're making it personal now by getting the crowd involved in it. And James Breeding was the official who ejected Danny, and I was 100% with him on that situation for the ejection. I mean, you just can't incite the crowd after you get a technical foul. If everybody did that, that's not right for basketball. It's not right for the kids you're coaching. You're supposed to be setting an example. That's setting an example. Wow. I mean, it's just not right.
Of the coaches currently in basketball, would you consider him to be the most animated, or are there other coaches that you think? I know you talked about Huggins. Are there coaches that you think are very just like 0 to 100 at the first tip in a game? I know you talked about the Hurleys and the Hurley family. Is there anybody else that sticks out to you that's very with it? And as I'm saying this, I have the picture up of you on our Facebook and YouTube where you look like John Calipari had given you a migraine.
I know that picture. I'm doing it with my fingers right now in my head. I always like John. John got to a point sometime, but once you said to John, you're getting to a point you're embarrassing me. I would never embarrass you. You as a head coach, your players, your assistant coaches. I expect the same treatment, you know. And if you say that to a coach and he continues after that, the onus is not him, not me anymore. So, I mean, I gave the message, and that's how I would dealt with things when coaches get like that. Don't embarrass me, you know. That's one thing. Referees, don't embarrass me, and don't call me a cheater. Those are the two big things with referees.
And speaking here with Mike Hitz, longtime NCAA official and now coordinator of men's basketball, officiating with numerous conferences that you've worked with here over the years. Mike, here inside the Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora broadcast in the Cafe Kubal studios. For you, when you look at everything with an official, I mean, you and I have talked about this before. It was always bad, right? I grew up in the Dome. So I know names of officials that people didn't like, that every time there was a game, people would tell you like a week in advance, oh, such and such is going to be at the game today. So we know we're not going to get the calls. There's this world of 30,000, 15,000, 20,000 verse 3. And, you know, the officials always have to deal with that. How did you... And how did you as an official and how do you as an official deal with that? Because we all have hecklers, right? I have people that question my broadcasting and my merit. Coaches have it, student athletes have it, actors have it. You know, basically anybody in the entertainment world or anybody in the spotlight anywhere has it. Officials, I believe, are considered one of the most consistently hated people in America and in the world. So why did you decide to put yourself in the spotlight where you could be one of the most hated people in the world? And two, how do you deal with it? Because I know that you're a good person. I appreciate you. You're a man of many morals and values. And when you put on the stripes, people hate you just because you're there. How did you deal with that? And what do you think about living in a world? Like, what brought you into a world where you knew even when you're right, you're wrong?
Yeah, you know, I got involved in officiating when I was 24 years old. You know, I played basketball in college, and, you know, to this day, somebody asked me this question last night at the games I got in this tournament in Daytona. I'm in Daytona Beach, Florida right now. But I got involved in it because when I played, I was a pain with referees, and I wish I could go back and tell these guys how sorry I was. It would be such a pain, but when one of the referees who I respected really well got so mad at me, he said, if you think you know so much, why don't you take the test? And that was at 24 years old. And I refereed till I was 64 years old. So I'm kind of glad he said something to me that got me involved in it, you know. And, you know, when I get hecklers at the games, especially we had an incident the other day, or a couple of weeks ago, with Mike Roberts at a UConn game. I guess it was an NBA player on a cell phone or something. And Mike Roberts threw him out of the game. And for what, I don't know. I haven't talked to Mike about that. But, you if a heckler gets personal, I always tell the referees you have to go through game management first. You can't just go over and throw them out. You go over to game management. At least give them a chance to take care of the situation. Say, look, this guy's getting personal. He's sitting at half court on the front row, and if you don't take care of him, then I'm going to have you ask him to leave. So at least give the game management a chance to take care of it. And if they don't take care of it, then you just go to game management. I want him to be removed. The game's not going on until he's gone. So there's different ways of handling it, and guys have different ways, but they got to go to game management first. You just can't take it upon yourself.
Are you surprised at how personal and like language or lack thereof, just how I mean, I've heard people for years. I mean, I've been going to games since I was a little kid. I think the thing that kind of hits me some kind of way is nobody should hear that language. And I've been at games where I'm like, there's kids here. And not that it's like it doesn't affect an adult for me to sit there on press row and hear somebody say really disgusting verbiage to an official or to a coach or to a player. But it's become commonplace that, the student section will swear at people now. They'll make sexual innuendo comments. Like, where's the line, Mike? Because in today's world, everyone's offended, but the people that are offended also sometimes are the most offensive. And how do you how do you handle a world where people are comfortable screaming out really, really just vile things to the point where, I mean, I was at a game this year in the Dome where I heard the person behind me and I was like, how is this guy not checking himself as like a grown 40-year-old man or whatever to say, I probably shouldn't speak in this manner in public?
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of times they got their kids sitting next to them, a 10, 12-year-old kid, whether it's a young daughter or a young son, and the stuff that comes out of their mouth that just, they get so ramped up in a basketball game that really there's a lot of other things going on in this world that are more important. But I mean, I totally get it what you're saying. I was at a game last night. I got the referees down there, 12 of them. We got 16 mid-major teams playing down here in Daytona. VMI was playing NC Greensboro last night. And these two parents up in the stands must have been parents of VMI kids. They were brutal. I mean, just, you want to go up to them and say to them, are you an adult? I mean, do you talk like that at home in front of your kids or your wife? But it's, like you said, it's getting worse. I mean, it's unbelievable what is being said now. And I don't know when it's going to come to an end, but, you'd think anybody who represents a school would go up and say, look, we don't act like this. We want, but nobody takes a step forward and does the right thing a lot anymore. So, I don't know.
Yeah, and we've seen, obviously people have their opinions and have their thoughts, and we have our opinions and our thoughts too. And in looking at that, we've talked about the first four, Mike. You've continuously gone through here. You've been connected to the NCAA tournament this year and the CBI tournament that you just mentioned down in Daytona. Let's talk about, besides the first four of the NCAA, what else you've seen as it's gone on, and then the CBI, like, of your current travels this past week and whatnot, what have you really keyed in on rules-wise that is top of mind to you? Like, what's coming across your desk right now as JD Collins is obviously, looking for your input, and what are you seeing?
The big thing is when I judge a referee, you got to have judgment, you got to have rule knowledge, and you got to, the perception is you got to look the part now. You don't see too many heavy guys refereeing anymore. They're all kind of, thin-waisted, built pretty good. They want that perception is huge as it goes on. It was a lot different back when I was refereeing. But that's come about the last 5, 6, 7 years as far as perception. JD wants consistency, and everybody can say that they're inconsistent. But I mean, I keep coming back to the same thing. If you've never refed a game before, I love to put Jay Billis in a referee's body for like 5 minutes and see how he does, because he's kind of tough on referees, and sometimes he's to the point where I don't think he's very fair. Sometimes when he's making comments about officiating, he's got a monitor in front of him where he can go slow motion. I mean, I could referee like that. I wouldn't get a play wrong if I could referee like that. But he makes comments about referees, and they got to make a split-second decision based on, is a defensive player legal? Is the offense creating contact? Is it a secondary defender? Is he in the arc? Is he outside the arc? I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in a referee's mind. The people who never referee, they just don't understand it. They can't. I mean, there's no way they can do it unless you've done it like I have, or even the other guys I watch referee. So it's just it's a hard job, man.
It is. And looking at the moments, we mentioned TCU and Arizona. Of the games that we've seen here recently in the NCAAs as we've gone to now the round of the Sweet 16, what moments are sticking out to you? Because I know you said there were other plays that have kind of hit you and been top of mind over these last couple of days. What are some of those that we haven't talked about yet?
Even the Iowa game the other day when they were down 3, Iowa lost to Richmond.
Yeah.
And the kid gets fouled on a 3-point shot, less than 30 seconds left. And it's right there. And Notch has made some remarks about it. That's a big play that you can't miss. When you're roughing these games and J.D. Collins decides if you're going on and not going on, if you have any controversy in your game, 99.9% of the time you're not moving on. When they go into these games for the weekend, they're given 2 games. I'll give you an example. We had a referee. The first game, he was supposed to do 2 games. He got to his side. He had an inadvertent whistle, which screwed up a play in a game. And he was supposed to do a second game. And JD called him up and said, we can't let you move on because you screwed this inadvertent whistle up. And now, if you want to go home, fine. If not, you can be the alternate, and the alternate's going to referee. So he goes, I'm a team player. I screwed up. He admitted he screwed up with the inadvertent whistle. So he sat, and the person who was supposed to be the alternate got to referee a game,
Yeah.
So there are situations. If you screw up a rule in an NCAA game, you're automatically going home. If you're involved in a lot of controversy in a game, which, I know that the people at the NCAA goes and look at the statements made on Twitter or whatever those accounts are, and they want to see if there's any stuff going on with that, with games and what the people are thinking. So how he decides who moves on, who doesn't, you don't move on if you screw a rule up. You can move on if it's a judgment call, but if there's a lot of controversy in any particular game, you're not moving on.
And you just brought it up. I mean, in the world of social media, you and I talked about it with the Buddy Boeheim thing. How, when it comes to the retroactive world of punishing a player and going back and looking at something, is social media good for officiating or is it bad?
I think it's bad. I tell the referees before the season begins in my conference calls, I can't tell them what to do. I just suggest something. I'd rather knock it on social media. But some people can't help themselves. I've never been on it. I don't know how to get on it, which it doesn't bother me. So when people say stuff about me, I don't read it. So a quick story, when I was still refereeing, my daughter, she goes on social media and she goes, Dad, I thought you were a good ref. Everybody thinks you stink, So that's what social media does. Some people like it, some don't, but I don't even give it a shot to even look at it. So I'm not going to go on it, and I never will. So.
Yeah, I was always surprised when an official has a Twitter thing. I'm like, I don't know if you want to go in because you're never going to be right. But it's just interesting to me, like the plays that stick out. And you mentioned Iowa Richmond, which is the same thing Dave did, and then you and I talked about TCU and Arizona. There's just some blatant things. And the other thing I want to ask you really quick, since you oversee a bunch of different conferences and you work with different people all over the country, and J.D. Collins overseeing everything. When I am covering the ACC tournament and I'm covering the Big East tournament, and I told you I was going back and forth, and so here I am at the Barclays, and then here I am at Madison Square Garden in the same day. the Big East looks like they're allowed to be more physical, and not that there's like a blatant foul, but they're playing. Where the ACC, it's like ticky-tack, ticky-tack, ticky-tack. What about consistency? Because each conference, as you know, there's a coordinator of men's basketball officiating at each conference, or, a conference may hire someone like yourself to do, multiple different conferences you may have. So when each conference is left up to themselves and to their group of officials, now there is a pool of an alliance where people can rotate, but do you believe there's a level of consistency? Can it get better?
It's come about maybe in the last, 15, 16 years where we got one person going to 4 different sites around the country before the season begins to make it consistent. Like JD will go to Atlanta, he'll go to Philadelphia, he'll go to Phoenix, and he'll go to LA. And all the referees, I heard the same thing from JD, all 4 places. They're all seeing the same films about what should be called the post play, what shouldn't be called the post play. So as far as, consistency, the NCAA is really putting forth a good effort to do that. But, it's always been a thing where the Big Ten was physical, the Big East was physical, the ACC was more finesse. But that's what people say. I don't see that. I just see teams playing, and it really doesn't look like. I mean, when I left all those leagues when I was refereeing, I didn't see much difference. But that's what people think, and that's their opinion. So that's the way it goes.
That comment from Mike Kitts, longtime NCAA official, current coordinator of officiating. Mr. Kitts, I will have you back as a resident official to give your thoughts, because there's games coming up and there's going to be things to be had here. So I'm excited about that. Poor you down in Daytona. Please say hello to the second home of Wake Up Call and my second home of the great state of Florida. And please enjoy the sun today.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it really much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, take care. Talk soon.
Bye-bye.
That coming from Mr. Mike Kitts here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We'll take a step aside for a final fast break. I feel like, no matter how many things we could talk about with Mike, I could have just stuck on one game and said, what about this and what about that? I mean, it's just, it's exciting to get, his view on what's going on and to really get the officials' side of it. Because I feel like everybody thinks that they're an official. I mean, I do sometimes. I'm not going to lie about it. I broadcast now. There's moments where I'm like, wow, that should have been called and it wasn't called. So I'm happy that, there's things that I'm seeing, like that jump ball that wasn't called that led to Arizona dunking at home in overtime and ultimately winning, that Mike saw that as a jump ball too, because Mike's been doing this thing for over 4 decades, and I have never been an official. I just thought I saw it, and so you go to the experts to see, hey, am I wrong? If I'm wrong, tell me, because this is what I saw. So I'm happy that somebody else saw it, and somebody of great merit like Mike Kitts. And, there's other plays that you just want to review and you want to talk about. So it's always good to have somebody on who's such a good person, a strong person, a caring person, and somebody who has worked tirelessly to try and make this game not be about the official and be about the game itself. So with that being said, big thanks to Mike Kitts. We'll take a step aside for our final fast break today, and we'll be back to wrap up Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora with a fantastic week of specials coming your way. And I cannot wait. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you.
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
I'm George Townsend of Honda City with some good advice when buying a new car. The true cost of owning a new car is determined by the appraised value when you trade it. No vehicle appraises higher than a Honda. Next, look for low APRs and deep discounts. You also want low maintenance costs and great fuel economy. That's why my advice to you is to buy a new Honda. Looking pre-owned, visit our Honda Certified Used Car Center. Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard, Liverpool, or HondaCity-CNY.com.
It would be a pity if you don't shop at Honda City.
Our corporate purpose at Chick-fil-A is to glorify God by being faithful stewards of all that's entrusted to us and to positively influence all those who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. And what became increasingly clear from our success in Cicero is that people love Chick-fil-A. And also I think we recognized that we had a great opportunity to grow the brand and grow our platform. I felt incredibly grateful when I was selected to be a Chick-fil-A operator. I think what it's meant for me, what I've come to realize on a very deep level is that this is a calling for me. It's not a career. It's not a job. The Lord called me to be a Chick-fil-A operator and to use these restaurants to glorify Him and to positively influence other people. I'm blessed. I'm very blessed.
Head to Chick-fil-A Clay on 3974 State Route 31 in Liverpool, New York.
Cafe Cabal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafecabal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Cabal needs. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
This is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the whole frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating. Find them at 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and all the time online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, you can order all throughout the country at maandpaspopcorn.com. And remember to get your tins, which have in-store half-price refills forever. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, available to you for fundraising and all of your events by calling 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you? The Millhouse Market, located on 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York, is worth the drive every time. Make sure you make your way out to the Millhouse Market every Tuesday through Sunday for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You can enjoy the Millhouse Market by calling 315-298-4104 to place your order. They also have catering available. That's 315-298-4104. You can also go to their app on the Google Play or Apple App Store. Download the Millhouse Market app, and you'll have everything from their menu at your fingertips, including their fantastically tasty treats, as well as the sandwiches named after the families that helped to settle today's Pulaski. Ingrained in our taste buds and ingrained in our community, with an indoor bistro menu that changes every week, to their drive-through pickup window to grab your food and go, to their very easy-to-use app, to their general store inside with local products from local companies. The Millhouse Market is a multi-purpose way of giving back to the community and giving us not only fantastic things to eat, but a wonderful, wonderful group of people that are working so tirelessly to make sure that we're bringing each other together and lifting each other up. The Millhouse Market, 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York. Worth the drive every time. With that being said, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, I want to thank you for tuning in every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on YouTube.com, Facebook.com, and MixLR.com, all /Wake Up Call DT. Also a big fan of you going to WakeUpCallDT.com, and want to thank you for that, as well as those of you that are tuning in live on Facebook.com /LiveNowDT. So however you're connecting with the show every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, we thank you so much. And after the shows go live, you can hop into the archives and listen and watch Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora by finding us on all of these avenues, by searching Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. You'll find us on YouTube, MixLR, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Podbean, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. All you have to do is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora or Wake Up Call DT as one word. Thank you to our Central and Upstate New York partners and beyond, Cafe Kubal, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, as well as Avicoli's, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, PB&J's Lunchbox, Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, Honda City of Liverpool, the Millhouse Market, Pizza Man, Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay, and Mother's Cupboard, as well as being the proud multimedia marketing partner of your Lemoyne College Dolphins inside of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Every single month, the Lemoyne Dolphins are connected with us with specials. Every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time is Dolphin Time. Set it and keep it. Every week, every Wednesday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, we have our Dolphin Time with coverage of the Lemoyne Dolphins. First and third Wednesdays of each month, we have AD and DT with Athletics Director Bob Beretta and myself, Dan Tortora, connecting with you and giving you different topics every single time we sit down. Every second and fourth Wednesday is Dolphin Dive, where we have stories from student athletes, coaches, staff members, future Dolphins, and alumni telling their stories of why they chose Lemoyne, what Lemoyne has done for them, and their journey as a Dolphin, whether it's just begun or it's something that's continued on for decades and decades after. The Lemoyne Dolphins stories get told in a unique way you won't find anywhere else, as it's always fins up here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and you can find their stories on the youtube.com /wakeupcalldt channel. You can click subscribe and get our entire archive there. You can go to Lemoyne tab on wakeupcalldt.com, and of course you can get more information by going to lemoynedolphins.com. Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora is also the proud multimedia marketing partner of your Marywood Pacers. It's Pacer Pride every single month on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and Pacer Pride exclusive sit-down specials, including with the president of Marywood University. Definitely go back and watch that, Sister Mary Persico. We have not only the president, but the executive director of athletics, Pat Murphy, as well as student athletes and coaches join us every single month on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on Fridays between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You'll hear from the Marywood University Pacers in our Pacer Pride specials, typically around 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, exclusively here for you. Find them at the Marywood tab on wakeupcalldt.com, as well as by going to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt and clicking subscribe. And you can get more information on the Pacers by going to marywoodpacers.com. The Syracuse Bobcats of Bryan and Stratton College are here for you. Exclusive multimedia marketing partnership on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora with the Bobcat Buzz. Bobcat Buzz happening every single month on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We started things off with a roundtable discussion featuring multiple faces and names of the athletic department of the Bryan and Stratton Syracuse Bobcats. So definitely go check that out, as well as all of our specials with Clay Gagan Sherman and Dan Frisina, and all of the things we got to do. Our Mother's Cupboard Challenge with Dan and Clay that we got to do with the owner of Mother's Cupboard, Pete Green, and myself. The four of us sitting at a table with Bryan and Stratton-esque breakfast, little spin to it, with some nice blue frosting on our cinnamon swirl French toast. So very excited to have done that with them, as well as follow them both to their national tournaments in Richmond, Virginia. So get all of our Bobcat coverage and so much more throughout each month. And of course, there on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt and on the BSC SYR page on wakeupcalldt.com. The Bobcat Buzz, exclusive multimedia marketing partners of your Bryan and Stratton College Syracuse Bobcats. And we bring you the buzz every single month. Get more information at syracuse.bscbobcats.com. With that being said, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios, 324 West Water Street, now reopening, as well as 401 South Salina Street, 3501 James Street, all in Syracuse. Inside of downtown Syracuse in the Galasanos Children's Hospital, as well as on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York, and on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at their Sweetheart Corner location in North Syracuse. Head out to Cafe Kubal today and fill your cup up right by supporting local and not being disappointed, because those flavors are incredible. Their chai, my favorite chai that I've ever had, and I love all the flavors I get to have, so thanks to Cafe Kubal for that, and the chocolate chip banana bread for sure. With that being said, big thanks to our guests here in Ma and Pa's Popcorn.com's What's Poppin'. Go to maandpazpopcorn.com. Any one of the 50 states, order your kettle corn and popcorn favorites today and have them sitting next to you, because there's no better way to watch the game and nothing better to throw at the TV that won't break the TV than your kettle corn from Ma and Pa's. So make sure you get that. And we're doing a Ma and Pa's bracket challenge, March Madness-esque thing on site at Ma and Pa's on 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool. That's officially starting today, so you want to stay close to our social media for that. Thanks to Dave Pasiak, thanks to Mike Kitts, and thank you to all of you on Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, Twitter at Call DT, and Instagram at WakeUpCall_DT. Be sure that you're there today, as we will be unveiling exactly what we're doing to connect Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory with March Madness. Can't wait to unveil that special. And in the meantime, and as always, God bless, no stress, do your best. Stay safe, people.